Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Nontraditional Nurse. Today, I am really excited to be joined by Kenzie Butler. Thanks for joining us today, Kenzie.
Thank you for having me.
And Kenzie is a nurse who has worked in a variety of non-traditional roles, and now she's the director of nursing programs at Blueprint Test Prep. But she also offers one-on-one career consulting for nurses and healthcare providers looking to grow or pivot out of their careers. So I'm super excited to hear about your career, kind of the journey you've taken, and what you've learned along the way. So let's get started. So
Awesome.
you've had such a dynamic nursing career. Can you just start by walking us through your path, and what influenced some of those transitions along the way?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm going to try to make a long story short, but I was a bedside nurse for a number of years and I worked in critical care and really enjoyed helping other people feel comfortable in that space. And so I kind of took on this like impromptu simulation role where I would walk through different like scenarios with people, even to teach myself. And from there, I was offered like a simulation role within my healthcare organization. And I did that for a number of years. And that's really what led me to my pivot away from the bedside. It was a little bit non traditional in and of itself. And then I was pulled into a large med device company. And so I helped lead some of their simulation efforts there. And that was kind of like my first dabble in that space. And then I realized, as a nurse, we offer so much as like outside of the bedside space with like our knowledge base. So I was in med device for a number of years working both for companies in the US and with global facing, and it was just so cool to be able to lean on that knowledge and expertise in a new way. I did a lot of what we call like prof ed or med ed roles. And so those are helping teach doctors and nurses and APPs about safe and efficacious use of products. And truly just taking my love and interest in education is what led me here into Blueprint and helping, nurses and nurse practitioners pass their boards.
That's awesome. And I think, going into med devices,
Mhm.
that first leap, even though you were in kind of a non traditional educational role in the hospital, just like getting out of the hospital, that first leap is like so intimidating for people and they just don't know where to start
Mhm.
in terms of looking for jobs. So, how did you position yourself to get that first job in medical device without any experience in that space prior?
It is a weird leap in our brains. I think we get so because all of our clinicals are set in a hospital or some sort of healthcare facility. I am a little spoiled living in Minnesota. We have so many med device companies here, and just with some of my experience, I was exposed a little bit more to the devices. But a couple of things I thought of, first and foremost, I didn't even like think about this initially, but we were having some trainings at my hospital. We had implemented a new defib device. And so a nurse had come in and was training us on how to use these Zoll defibrillators. And so I was just talking to her just about like how her role went and things like that. And, she's like, when the training happened at her hospital, she talked to the nurse and asked like how they had positioned themselves. So a couple of things they leaned into and the advice they had given me was to look at your areas of expertise, like where have you worked as a nurse? What have you been exposed to? So for me, I had worked at some points on like a tele or CICU and was familiar with like a TAVR device. And so positioning some of those pieces, like educating patients and family on how to like anything they would need post-operatively or how the device works, and just some of the healthcare considerations around that were things I leaned in on. I also took like a zoomed out view. So if you don't know a specific device or a specific company you want to work with, but you're already educating patients daily. So if you want to transition to med device in an education or even a sales role, you already know how to speak this language to patients, how to take a really, really complex medical thing. And usually we put it into like a third or fourth grade reading level for our patients and explain it in that way, like in layman's terms. So just recognizing you're already doing some of these things that a lot of these companies want. And, but then you can also speak the same language as the providers. Like you speak medicalese, as I like to call it, for our
Yes.
provider groups or APPs or nurses that you might now be customer facing. So those are a couple of things I really encourage people to take a step back and look at. And oftentimes I've heard a few nurses say like, but I don't want to do sale. I could never sell anything. And I'm like, you sell to your patients all the time how to take a new
Absolutely.
medication or even to get like a CHG bath. I'm like, I feel like I am a salesperson for them because I have to explain to them constantly, like, here is the benefit and why we do this. So you're already selling. Like you sell your kids
Yes.
on eating their vegetables. Everyone is a
Absolutely.
salesperson in a
And
sense.
our patients on eating their vegetables.
Oh, I know. Or like not eating just garbage all day
Yeah.
long.
It's so true though. Just like changing that frame of mind
Mhm.
is so important because we have so many skills that are untouched. Say all the time, I think project management, like we are project managers. Our brain is a Gantt chart. Like
Yeah.
it's what we're doing all the time. We're bringing together groups of people. So I think that's huge. Are there any other things besides education specifically that you think nurses really overlook that most of us have like wide variety of skills in?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Like truly like that sales role is a component of it. I think people get like turned off by it because they're like, oh, that's a lot of pressure and a lot of things. But I've seen some of the nurses turned sales. So you'll see roles that'll be like associate market manager or principal, therapist, whatever, in their area. And each company kind of like labels it something different,
Yeah.
but there is a sales component. It's like you go into the hospital and sometimes you're in the OR or you're doing these trainings, um, and people just get a little like uncomfortable with it. But truly, number one, like all the companies will give you the tools and resources to like speak the language, but it's just a great gateway to even get into med device and understand how that ecosystem works. And a lot of these people move around
Yeah.
truly in the companies, and maybe you start in this pathway of being like a market access or market manager or whatever, but then you might find you have a different skill set or interest and want to move within the company. We see a lot of people, nurses are really great at wiggling their way up into leadership roles too. So I my biggest thing I think that I've done for myself is saying yes and knowing that I can always change, I can always do something different, I can always go back.
Yeah. And that kind of brings us into my next question
Yeah.
because so many of the roles you've had have been like very, very different. So you're obviously kind of like stepping into uncharted territory time and time again, which makes, causes so much discomfort. But how do you navigate that?
I think there's an inherent trust I have for myself. I think about it all that like we have to go through so much just to go through nursing school. And then the fact that most of us are in our early 20s. I was in my early 20s when I was in ICU. I was like, I was literally handling life saving medication. I can do anything. I
Yeah,
think I
it's
just had to
so
get out of my
true.
own way and just trust, like, if I can be managing 5 pressor drips at any given time, I can certainly manage navigating corporate America. And
Absolutely.
and then I think just like I mentioned before, you will always be able to go back to the bedside. Point blank period.
Yep. It's there for you.
Yes, yeah.
Absolutely. All right. So tell us about your current role at Blueprint Test Prep. Like, what does your day to day look like? And then how do you bring, your clinical nursing background into it?
Yeah, yeah. So my day to day, I lovingly refer to myself as kind of the junk drawer of my organization. I lead the nurse practitioner and RN product lines in the sense of I have touch points with our marketing director and experts because I am technically part of the audience. So I help kind of position language or even some of the visuals. We're a very collaborative team. I think all nurses like to be very like collaborative and hands-on. I do a lot with sales in and of itself. So I'm a nursing faculty, adjunct faculty at a university here in Minnesota. And so it's been really helpful for me to speak that same language and have exposure to curriculum development. So I work with our institutions about how to use our product, how to integrate it, how it can make their lives a little bit easier. I definitely have had the experience of having, products thrown at me and I don't know what I'm doing with them. So I only use like one feature and like, what a disservice.
Yeah.
So I work with them and partner with them to show them all the potential and help call out some of the things that might not be intuitive for them to see in our product lines. But overall, I attend conferences so I can be face to face with people, which I love as an extrovert. I love being with people and being with other nurses. And I try to help even some of like our e-com positionings and things, like as a person who once had to shop myself for board prep, just trying to make it easier and make the language make more sense. So that is a lot of my day, is just like navigating all of these various pieces and trying to position them the best way as possible.
Yeah, that's great. It sounds like a lot of fun.
It is, but it is funny, like when I'll tell like my other nurse friends about it, they're like, I would never know how to market or how to do these things. And I'm like, yes, I intuitively didn't know these things, but I was like, again, we do a lot of this in our day-to-day role.
Oh
We
yeah.
are essentially marketers for ourselves and use certain language, so it's
Yeah.
there.
It's because we get goosebumps when you hear the word email. Like, we
Drip
like go
campaign. Woo.
exactly. I think it would be so cool if one of our clinicals in nursing school, you get to choose a clinical. If that's something you could like do, like a med device or an education or things like that, that would be, I think, such a service to nurses.
Yeah, that was one thing I tried to push for at one of my last med device companies, was making a summer internship for like master's level for
Yeah.
them to come in and learn how we do some of our like product research, or even how we look into like the studies, like researching white papers. I'm like, I feel like that'd be such a great way to expose ourselves. So hopefully that becomes more mainstream in the future.
Absolutely. Yeah. What a great way. I mean, we talk about that's why the non traditional nurse exists, because it's hard to find what's really out there. So being exposed to that during your education, I think, could be so helpful.
Yeah.
So, what advice would you give to a nurse who's feeling really burned out or stuck at the bedside, but just doesn't even know where to start or what else is possible?
Yeah, that definitely have lived that
Yes.
experience. I think there's work that goes into it. I know like people will say, oh, people have told me like, oh, you're so lucky like that you've gotten into this, and there is a sense of that, but it was like work and thought, not laborious, but just to like transition my brain of like, okay, erase everything I know as far as like applying to hospitals and doing it a little bit different, like how to position your resume. Let's say you want to go into med device or even ed tech, which is like where I'm at now. There are some great resources on like chat gpt if you want to start dabbling into that realm, at least to get your brain started on how you might leverage your skill set a little bit different, or even how to position your resume. And then even for searching for jobs, every job I have had outside of the bedside, I have found on LinkedIn. It is a
Yeah.
great resource, but there is a lot of like weeding through to find said roles. But I mean, they're there, and if you're needing a little bit of guidance, I like challenge you to reach out to people on LinkedIn who have careers that you're interested in, and figure out how they did it or how they looked for it, or if they even have openings in their company. Having people is also a resource to lean into.
Yeah, absolutely. And now, with your career coaching and consulting, so you're helping nurses, healthcare professionals navigate these career changes. And this might be a bit of overlap, but what's kind of like a mindset shift or another action step if someone's kind of knowing that they want to switch um, and moving through that?
Yeah. My best advice I give people, which feels like non-advice at all, but you have to get out of your own way. I think one mindset shift I tell myself all the time, rather than getting on like, well, I'm not going to be good at this, or I don't know what I'm doing, or what if I hate it, is
Yeah.
just saying like, but what if everything works out? And what if it's easy? And what if I love it?
Yeah.
And just kind of opening up that potential, because again, at the end of the day, let's say it isn't for you, you can always change, you can always pivot, but saying yes to something totally new is a skill set in and of itself. So just I challenge you to say yes to something that feels very uncomfortable or different. That was even, when I took my first adjunct faculty role, I remember at the time feeling like imposter syndrome of like, I can't do this. I'm like a brand new baby potato. I've only been a nurse for
Yeah.
a couple of years. What can I offer? And it's been one of the most rewarding experiences, and like not to toot my own horn, but I've had really great adjunct feedback
Yeah,
from students and faculty alike because my experience was new and I could help them navigate some of the language rather than some of my counterparts who've been faculty for 30 years. I think we both offer something really valuable. So remind yourself that there are so many things that you uniquely can bring to any space.
absolutely. That's great advice. And even the yes that comes so early on, and that you feel uncomfortable even, reaching out like a cold message on LinkedIn, like you're
Yeah.
like, they can't do it, impossible. And then you
Yes.
get someone that wants to talk to you, and like it just opens doors. And then, yeah, every time you get into a new role, like you said, a lot of people move within the industry as soon as you get in that industry. So that's just so valuable.
Absolutely.
Well, Kenzie, thank you so much for sharing your story. I think you have so much great advice to offer, and I know it's going to resonate with a lot of nurses that are kind of looking for what's next. And thanks for our listeners for coming, and be sure to subscribe to the Nontraditional Nurse newsletter to catch more inspiring interviews from awesome nurses like Kenzie.
Thanks, Ellie. Have a great day.
Thanks, you too.